right about now. The Funk Soul Brother, check it out now. The Funk Soul Brother, right about now. Right up now, but check it out now. The Funk Soul Brother, right about now. Now.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Right About Now podcast. This is John Small. All right, so we record this in rather sad and dire circumstances here in Los Angeles. As most of you know, the wildfires have been raging out of control here in Southern California, specifically in Los Angeles. And as we record this, 40,000 acres have burned. Approximately 12,000 structures have been destroyed. The death toll is currently 25, but that number is expected to be much higher. And one of the worst hit areas was the Pacific Palisades, which is a small coastal community. It's 20 miles west of downtown LA. 23,000 acres burned in this community. That destroyed homes and schools and shops and churches. And to understand just the size of that, imagine an area larger than Manhattan. I read today that it was 28 central parks. I don't know. It's hard to even kind of understand the scope of how large this fire is and how many lives it has affected. I am now sitting with a survivor of the Palisades fire. Lee Ann Daly lost her home and so many of her memories, but luckily, thankfully, mercifully, she was able to escape the fire with her 3 cats, or with her 2 cats and one that was staying that happened to be.
My neighbor's cat that was on a play date because he had moved to a different house in a different neighborhood, but was missing my cats. And of course, you know, if you're a cat person, you won't think I'm crazy and you won't think his owner's crazy.
We are seriously cat people here. So I have been thrilled to have the cats now staying at my home. Okay, so Lee Ann and I have known each other for, maybe 10 years.
10 years.
We first met at the Game Show Network, where she ran the marketing department. We really liked each other. Then we realized we had a good mutual friend, and the rest is history. And I have to say, Lee Ann is really one of the most impressive and creative people that I know. On her website, she describes herself as a creative marketing and brand leader with an eye for design, that's for sure. She uses technology and design to create and rebrand businesses from a consumer and sustainability perspective. She is a native of Indiana. I mean, her career is unbelievable. She's run the marketing departments of companies you might have heard of, like ESPN, Reuters, Press Juicery most recently. Her work has taken her around the world. She's launched new brands in every continent except the Arctic, which I'm feeling like we need to take care of.
I'm a disappointment.
Maybe this year. Yeah, that's
to my
pretty
family.
Upsetting, and I feel some polar bears might be upset. Or maybe it's the penguins. I don't remember which lives in the Arctic. Like, after all this incredible career, and Lee Ann still decided she had more to learn, and she went back to USC's Iovine and Young Academy to get a Master's of Science in Integrated Design, Business, and Technology. I mean, what that is, we can talk about that later. But it's right now, that's probably like just a blur in your head. First of all, I want to start this just by asking how you are doing. We see each other in the night. You're staying at my home, but you're taking care of so many things.
Yeah.
And
let me just say, for just before we get started and talking about how I feel, I want to just express my gratitude for how you've embraced us and given us a place to be.
Thank you. I mean, it's really honestly the least we could do. But you're wonderful guests, and you can stay as long as you'd like.
Well, I am. We're going to get out of your hair when we sort this out, but not the least is that you are a cat fancier, and I do have 2 cats. One cat is very famous in the Palisades. In fact, the day that we evacuated, I posted a picture of him on his Instagram as well as on Nextdoor in the Palisades.
Oh my God.
Because he's a walkabout. He is a little bit of a, playboy celebrity of the streets of the Palisades.
He really is.
Because I walk him.
This is Moose.
Moose. He's a cat that heels and follows like a dog. Anyway, I want to express my gratitude, and then I'll get back to answering your question. I would say I'm like a third still numb. I haven't really had the sort of wailing and screaming episode that I think comes when you wade into a big territory of grief. I feel like I have information whizzing past my head like bullets in a in a battle. You know, I have the things that I know I'm supposed to do in a spreadsheet. You know, I'm organized, but like everybody's trying to be helpful and sending tons and tons of stuff. And, you know, have you read that thing? And it's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
No. Plus, I'm one of the people who, you know, I had insurance with AIG forever, and then they dropped California 3 years ago. So I got insurance with State Farm, and State Farm informed me that they were going to cancel my fire coverage on the 18th of December, 2024. So in other words, I was given warning that they were going to do it. So I had a chance to look for other insurance, but no admitted carrier in the state of California would write a fire policy. I could get non-admitted insurers, but if you get a non-admitted and they go bankrupt, California doesn't back you up. So I had to take something called the California Fair Plan. And, you know, I filed my claim on the 10th, and I still haven't heard back from an adjuster. I have a claim number, but I haven't heard back from the person who's supposed to, quote unquote, help me. So there's that, which is just a big unknown. And then there's housing, which I've applied for 6, 7 houses. And I'm trying to get a house because I have these 2 cats. I haven't been accepted. Just yesterday afternoon, a friend of my son's, the mother is trying to, you know, give us a very sweet deal, but there are a variety of different reasons why it might not work out. It might work out, but it might not work out. It's not like ideal. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknown, and a lot of, you know, a lot of grief that hasn't been expressed. And I have these 2 kids. People were saying, what can I do? And I'm like, I was going to be helping my kid, the younger one, to get an internship, and the older one to sort of get on his way because he's got 8 more units at USC to complete. He's also at USC. You know, you support your kids. I'm not going to have the bandwidth to do that. So I said to all my friends, please help my kids. Just help my kids find internships and jobs, make introductions for them, be the advocate that I would have been. I'm
on this now. Now that I know.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's very kind. And so, you know, that's what you do. And I also asked people for pictures because my younger son, Kier, came to me and said, I wish I had pictures of you when you were younger because those were all gone. You know, the things that my mind immediately went to were all the pictures. And, you know, my father was a doctor, but he made these amazing Super 8 edited films. It's hard to describe what they're like. I'll show you one after we're done. To see it. Unbelievably amazing and important to me and my family, and they're gone.
They're not digitized.
Well, they were, but they were on a drive. They were on a hard drive, and they hadn't been posted up yet because Frank was correcting them. So, you know, maybe they exist. Maybe my dad duplicated them and gave them to people, and we'll see. But I suspect that all of the films he made of me as a little kid are gone because I don't think he would have duplicated those and given them to anybody else. So, you know, it's just kind of...
Those things are just...
Yeah, because you think you fortunately, because you're here still, you fast forward to, you know, when your first grandchild's born and you go, oh my God, they look just like I looked. And you want to show it, but you can't. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to live in the sad space, but you know, you're in it anyway. You just have to wait for the waves to come through, and like every 20 minutes you have a different feeling. You know, like you have feelings of like really deep appreciation and joy that you're here, and then you have moments of just feeling really vulnerable because you don't have any of the answers that you need in order to understand what's next. And
nobody does. I mean,
nobody does. Yeah, and it is compounded by the fact that it is, as I understand it, a hazardous site because of so many heavy metals, because of so many electric cars. My electric car was not there, so I we didn't contribute to that. Thank God we have a car and we don't have to go through insurance to get a car. But especially because it's California Fair Plan, nobody's calling me back. But in the wraparound insurance, when you get California Fair Plan, you get a thing called a wraparound policy, but they don't cover any fire. I mean, maybe they do for somebody, but they wouldn't. It's this level of like basically California, certain parts of California. It's like, yeah, we're going to kind of take your money, but we're kind of not going to cover you the way that most people think. And even getting the new coverage was like, I felt like I got a mini master's degree. I had to understand things that just regular people don't.
Right. And you're so on it, those kinds of things. So if you're having trouble understanding it, I can't even imagine what the average.
Yeah. And I think
like me.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that. But I mean, I think everybody might have been sold a bill of goods because like one of the smartest people in the Palisades that I know, a woman named Daphne Gronich, and I'm probably mispronouncing her, Gronick, last name, brilliant woman, former entertainment lawyer, basically runs what they call Palisades Papa, which is the people who put on the parade on the 4th of July. I'm in a WhatsApp talk group. She's also on California Fair Plan, and she's like saying, it's looking like we need to kind of really kind of drill down into what did they tell you when they gave you the policy, and because it's feeling
Can you imagine how many lawsuits? I mean, I don't even want, this is like a whole other.
It is, and we don't need to get into that, but I'm just telling you, I'm on the bleeding edge of that particular thing. I mean,
that is
now.
stressful.
Emotionally, I feel like I can't breathe out around it at all. And I have this information whizzing at me with wonderful people wanting to like comfort me and talk to me. And I'm just like, I have 28 things on my to-do list and nobody's calling me back. So it's like that kind of, I think somebody from there's a thing called the Malibu Foundation, somebody up in Malibu who I wish I could remember their name. Maybe you could look it up. He gave a little kind of talk on Instagram, and he said, listen, if you haven't lost anyone, it's not a tragedy. It's just a huge inconvenience and an annoyance that is going to go on and on and on and on. It's going to inform, it's kind of going to be like grief. Grief doesn't ever end really. It just shows up in different places. And this is going to be like the water that is grief. It's going to be the water that is the annoying details that you have to deal with, because I've heard estimates, and I'm not an expert, but I've heard estimates that just to get the infrastructure in is going to maybe take 3 to 5 years. Wow. I don't know. I mean, like I'm totally just hearing stuff. And so in that scenario, you have to kind of sometimes stop reading things because it doesn't really help you to know an unknown. Yeah.
The only equivalent I can think of, you mentioned when somebody dies or even during COVID, the sort of uncertainty. Now everybody was kind of in it together. So there's something, are you finding any solace in sort of talking to others that are in similar situations as you?
Yeah. I mean, I have I'm part of a thing called the Low Key Ladies Book Club. And, my husband is shooting right now. My husband's a commercial director his name's Frank Tadero. And if you want a really, really great comedy, humor and dialogue director.
He's awesome. Your husband's an awesome guy. I just love one of the only good points of this experience is I'm getting to know your husband a little bit better. Oh, yeah. And he's such a great guy, and he's a Westchester guy, and we totally relate.
He's a beaut. Frank Tadero, Emmy Award-winning Frank Tadero.
Amazing. Who actually once worked with my father in the very early stages of his career, which is so cool.
Yeah. Frank is a really great commercial director, but he also is a great short filmmaker and long filmmaker. And, he's worked with some amazing people. But his second AD on the project that he's doing now, which is a Super Bowl ad with Eugene Levy. Yeah, with Eugene Levy, told a funny story about his wife basically running around the house, pulling together all her daughter's clothes and all of his watch collection, and basically running out with, all her daughter's like proper underwear and whatnot, but only with her one single bra on. and they were doing something, and, they're living with his mother-in-law in a little apartment, tons of, basically a squeeze and a squash kind of situation. And she goes, I have to put on my bra. And he goes, it's okay, honey. You can call it the bra because it's the only bra. And I related this to the Low Key Ladies book club, and everybody was pissing their pants laughing. It's not that funny if you're not inside of it, but when you're inside of it, the stupidest things make you
humor is the way
laugh. And humor is always that gallows humor, of like, we're all experiencing something equivalent and it's like code.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff just makes you feel like, I think the way that it works is you feel like I'm doing it right because everybody else is having the same ridiculous, absurd, quote unquote problems. We're all alive, and if we can still laugh, it's the only thing I said to Frank when it first happened. And I had the benefit of a friend who is basically runs hospice in northern New Mexico for like the Buddhist community and the whole community. And he said, Daly, you're walking into a field of grief that has an unknown boundary, and he was totally right. And I went to Frank and I said, we need to understand that we're walking into a field of grief
that has an unknown boundary. And then something that I've brought from business, because I've been through mergers where it was clear that some people were going to get let go and others were going to get to stay. When we merged Thomson and Reuters, this happened. And I said to my colleagues, the only thing we can control is whether we want to work with each other after this is all done. So like whether the only thing I can control inside my family is we need to behave in as loving a way as we possibly can. And ironically, not be like the characters on Schitt's Creek who are just like, like screaming and tearing their hair out over not having Manolo Blahniks or something. Although you do know Eugene Levy now. So
Frank kind of does. But, we can all choose to behave ourselves and be the highest versions, and also recognize that sometimes we're going to have really, our best is going to be really shitty, and that's okay.
Yep. I don't know if it's too triggering or too soon, but are you able to sort of take me back to a week ago today? You tell me like what happened.
Yeah, I was, okay. So ironically, I was trying to purge clothes and makeup and things, and
just an everyday.
Just a normal, and I dedicated a day because I was, I'd just been on a trip to Austin, and I was unpacking, and I was like, why do I have all this shit? And so I was doing that, and I had just sat down to, on my computer, and I looked out the window, and the first thing I saw was what looked to me to be about 100 black crows flying together. And the wind was whipping around quite a bit, and I thought, wow, that's weird. Usually you see like maybe 20 crows, but this was like a blackness. It was like pepper in the sky, and I was like, wow. And I actually went online, and I was like, why do crows fly in gigantic groups? And they said for protection. And then a second later, ding, I got a text from the Low Key Ladies book club saying, are you evacuating? And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And so we had a terrace on top of our house. It was very simple. You could just go up there and sit on a pillow and look at the ocean. And I went up on the roof and opened the hatch. And I'm from Indiana, so I know what a tornado looks like when it's bearing down. And when I looked, I saw a plume of smoke that was the biggest plume of smoke I've ever seen in my life, closer than I've ever seen it before. And
did your heart
closed that? Yeah. I mean, it was like the being that is my being said, go immediately. And so I closed the hatch. I climbed down. I started calling for my kids. I pulled together the cats. we had this spare cat in the house, so I put 2 cats in, the younger cats in carriers, and I put the old cat in a suitcase.
Oh my goodness!
And Max was in a suitcase, and the kids were there. My son's girlfriend was there. My other son, Luke Tadero, his girlfriend Karma was there, and I just said, "Grab your stuff. We're going."
Did they even know? They had no idea.
They didn't know at all. Well, actually, I think Karma had seen some smoke, but it was lower. So you couldn't see as much, and I wouldn't let her climb up there because honestly, I didn't want her to be scared if she saw it, and it was huge. And to me, it looked like it was really, really close. And so we got out. I had some files pulled. I'd undone the sort of to-go file thing because I was trying to do new trusts and wills in California because we didn't realize we needed them done in California. So that stuff was kind of all over the place, and I just scooped up what I could. Didn't take any clothes. Took a second handbag that I had been kind of switching back and forth. I have 2 handbags, and left. And because we had this cat, I called Pell, my neighbor, and she's in a new rental house, and ran over with her cat to at least just give her a cat. And then I was just like, can we just stay here? Because we didn't know what was going on. And we sat at her house, and she was very, hospitable, lovely, like an unbelievably generous person. You met her.
Yeah. She has one of the cutest cats you'll ever see.
Oh, my God. Unslav, the third cat.
As a Siberian with whiskers to die. If you follow me on Threads, you'll see Unslav's picture.
Oh, anyway. He is my third cat child, because he would come to my house every day. Anyway, so we go to her house and we're sitting.
When you were going on her way to her house, were you seeing fire all around you, or was it the other direction? It
was the other direction, but I was seeing workers going towards it, like all different kinds of like firefighter. Like I must have seen, oh my God, I must have seen like 8, 9, 10 fire trucks coming in the other direction, police coming in the other direction, and people driving a little bit erratically. But it hadn't gotten to that terrible. I was not part of that traffic jam where you eventually saw cars getting towed. That was coming out of a part of the Palisades that the smoke was, coming from that direction. And so we drove over to her house and we just hung out. And we were following it on television at that point. After the first day, I stopped following it on television because I was following videos on Instagram and elsewhere next door of people who had gotten back up there on e-bikes with respirators and taken film. Because I was trying to figure out, what is the status of my house? Yeah. I also set up a Verbo for when I leave you, we're going to go to this Verbo for couple weeks because I just was like, well, I need some variability. I was like trying to do whatever I could do to get kind of set myself up. I wasn't being as savvy as other people who've been through fires. I don't come from a fire-prone background. Yeah. I've been evacuated again before in 2018, but it didn't seem to be a real issue. It was more like they wanted to use the fire roads behind where we live. So we had to get out. And so eventually, I want to say it was on the 9th when I was scrolling through videos, I saw, because you couldn't recognize anything, everything is burnt to the ground. It is literally a heap of ash. And in the case of our house, I think the floor caved in. So it's like a depression filled with ashes and metal. And so
you saw a video. Somebody had posted a video or a photo of your...
And it wasn't, they didn't go in detail, but they rode a bike by it, I guess, with a GoPro on their head. And I saw burnt agave, and I have a very distinctive front yard garden with drought-tolerant plants, and it's very wild. It's not like an orderly garden. It's kind of like a crazy garden. Yeah. And I saw this gigantic agave that I have, and it was sitting there, and I go, that's my house. And I looked up, and there it was. It was a dead house.
What was I guess at that moment, it's kind of like all the different stages of, right? Like the shock, what do you...
You feel numb, and you're just like, you don't understand it.
Yeah,
You just don't
it's too
understand it. It's
incomprehensible.
just too incomprehensible. And all I could do, it felt like a death, but not in a like falling on the ground and wailing kind of death. It felt like I needed to toast it. And so with my children and my husband and my former next door neighbor in the room, I toasted the house. I stood up and I said,
Yeah, what?
yeah,
Tell
you
me
can
what
read it. You can read it.
Yeah, I mean, you wrote. It was a glorious 10-year run. Boys became men. Cats frolicked. Countless toasts and meals with friends and family. R.I.P. 14925 Whitfield Avenue. She was Yar.
Yeah.
In quotes. What is she was Yar? What is that?
She was Yar comes from a line that Katharine Hepburn said in a Preston Sturges film about a boat that she had lost. And she was Yar is an expression of, now I'm going to cry. It's an expression of longing for a place and a thing that brought so much contentment and joy to so many people. And, I have hosted so many parties at that house. And that house was the place where kids, my older son went to Palisades Charter Elementary, which was a public school.
Is that still there?
No, it's gone. Pali Elementary's gone.
It seems like all the schools are gone. Most of them.
Yeah. I mean, parts of the high school are still standing, but the sort of the core classroom areas, the little trailers that they have, which they use a lot in California, those are all a heap of ash.
But you were saying your son.
My son ended up going to private middle school. But those kids that we met in 5th grade for that 1 year, because we moved from New York in 5th grade and we got a lot of friends quickly. A lot of those kids don't live in the Palisades, and they needed a place potentially to go after school because their parents couldn't pick them up. They were too young to draw in middle school. So we would always be like, come to our house. And so over the years, we accumulated a bunch of kids who would just feel at ease at our house.
Yeah, that was the central
the
hub. Yeah.
And we've given our house. So a friend of mine, Addison Brazil, posted. I gave him the house. He would help me with the cats, and I gave him the house for like New Year's Eve or Christmas, and he would have all of his friends over, and he put a wonderful tribute up about the house. And so all those memories, and we have those memories. Nobody can take the memories away. But what happens to you when this happens is you think that it's still there. You think, friend called me wanting to know if I had in my emergency kit, if I had any antibiotics, which I don't.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, I do. And then I was like, actually, no, I don't. My house burnt down, and you think, I need to return that book. My friend Elise Ahrens, who was one of the founders of Kate Spade, and then Frances Valentine, wrote a book about her relationship and her friendship with Kate Spade, who was her best friend from college, and they created these companies together. And I had the reader for that book, and that burnt in the fire. And they needed it back because they only had a few printed. You know what I mean? So that's gone.
I hope they forgive you for that.
I think they.
I think they have. Good. Yeah. Well. Yeah, that's the thing. That's what I imagine is that I'm sure like what would happen to me is like I'm sure like certain things would just flood back like, oh, that's gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
like,
you dream inside drawers. You open up a drawer in your mind and you look in and you go, oh, there are all the, I collect state plates, like really cheesy like souvenir plates that you can eat off. I don't get the ones that are dangerous to eat off of.
Yeah.
But I had collected 18 states, and they're gone. And they're just a little kitschy thing that I put out at my parties, and I love.
Right, but that's irreplaceable.
Yeah, because, it is, because it was just a random thing that was collected, $8 at a time at little antique shops and swap meets,
And you said you were like an archivist too, right?
I keep every letter ever given to me, and I've had some amazing well-traveled friends who wrote to me from the places where they lived and visited, including my friend Brad Miller, who lived all over the place and was sort of a cultural omnivore and would collect, like, you remember in the 90s when people used to hand you little flyers for concerts,
of course,
and all that. He would, when he was in Japan, especially, anything he got or any weird ad that he thought I should see, he would tuck those into the letters that he would write to me.
That's awesome.
You know, and I had all that stuff. And if I wanted to go back to like 1996, I could go into one of his letters and open it up and go, oh yeah, that was going on and that was happening. And, you know, I wrote to him after I learned of the loss, and I just said, I'm really mourning the fact that I have this archive of your writing to me, which was important to me. And it's gone. And also, you know, my mother and father gave me tons of birthday cards, and my father was a doctor, but he was also an artist and a filmmaker, as I mentioned. And he would always draw little pictures and doodles and stuff, and I kept all that stuff. And all of those things are gone. You know, I can't look at them anymore.
Yeah.
I had them very nicely organized. I had all my pictures organized.
Did you have pictures of them? Some of them? Not the letters. You're not going to take a picture of a letter.
Yeah, I didn't have pictures of letters.
Yeah, I mean, who would do that?
That stuff is gone. And, you know, I haven't been on the site because they won't let us in. Maybe there will be miracles, and you'll bring me back, and I'll tell you about the miracles. If we get let in, it may not happen because of the hazardous.
Is that so? It's what's going on? You mentioned the electric cars. I hadn't read about that. What's that all about?
That's something I read about, and I'm not an expert, and I really, you know, I was a journalism major in college, so I feel very sort of responsible.
Right,
to
like
uphold
being
the truth.
Right.
But
plus, we don't want Elon to sue us.
Oh yeah, and I'm not trying. I own it.
You own a Tesla?
I don't own it. I lease it, but you know, I enjoy the car. I think the guy is, you know, needs to reevaluate his
his priorities.
But yeah, there's a lot of people who had maybe third cars that they had in the garage, and those burnt up. And those heavy metals, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm not an expert in that hazmat or anything like that, but the sort of word on the street and on the WhatsApp and the various other tools that people are using to kind of aggregate information is that it's pretty not NG, no bueno.
Yeah.
You know, and hopefully they'll actually evaluate it and come back and tell us so we can, you know, go up there. We have video and film because my son Kier got on an e-bike with goggles and a respirator, and on the 10th, I think it was, made videos before any like proclamation of you can't go here.
Okay, so was
in place. So we have film, which puts us in a good position once we hear back from our insurer to say, take a look, tell us how we're going to do anything with what's here, because there's nothing here.
I didn't realize. So he had gone back. He has seen it.
Yeah, he did. And
what was did he say, Mom, it was just.
Yeah, he was very matter of fact about it. And I'm a little torn about the fact that he did it, but he wanted to do it. He sort of, my older son was the real steady Eddie in the drive, you know, to escape from the place. And just to be clear, you know, we didn't have flames licking at our heels. We left because I saw something that told my inner knowing, get the F out of there.
So you didn't have like firemen banging on your door saying,
no.
You weren't there.
No, I didn't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, no, you were smart.
So I left.
Yep.
Okay, so like that's it for me. Like
that's what you should do, and that's
I didn't have private firefighting that I could call. I didn't have a pump system to I had a hose, but the water pressure, I can tell you, was already going down in the village because I turned on the faucet and didn't understand why.
Yeah.
And then everything, in retrospect, but so Luke was the steady Eddie in the driving, and Kier was like very high agency of like, I want to go up there and get film. I want to see it. I want to know what's going on. And so both sons were amazing. I have a little bit of reticence about like, I hope they can process it. It's a lot. It's a lot to be 20 and 22 and have to process your house burning down. The only place that you really remember living that contains everything, every creative thing they ever did, because, Luke's a game maker and has been an artist, all his life. We had drawers and drawers of, built Legos and artwork. Like I archived all my kids' artwork. Kier is a clothing designer. He had things that he had made because he did draping at Otis during COVID. He did adult draping classes because he really wanted to learn it, and he wasn't going to learn it virtually through his high school.
Yeah.
So, for your kids of any age, you're sitting there going, what is this going to do? Because on a sort of an index basis, it's a huge part of their life.
Yeah.
That's gone. On an index basis for me, I lived in Indiana till I was 22, and then I lived in New York for 28 years.
Right. You just wanted.
It's just the last 12 years that I lost. And my lifetime of pictures and stuff like that. But for them, it's a bigger loss, I think, potentially.
Right now there's a lot of like speculation or a lot of finger pointing, we could have been better. Like are you interested in any of that? Are you like, how did it start? Those kinds of questions. Are you not, does that give you any comfort to think about that stuff?
To think about that? No, but I do think this. I think that there is a void of competency in Los Angeles and in California. I drove down to Mescal Canyon Road over and over again in the 7 months leading up to this event, and there was a water main break that I would see. I thought it was a creek going across to Mescal Canyon. It's not. It was a water main that's been leaking. And I lived in New York City, and a water main couldn't leak for more than 72 hours.
Right.
They just wouldn't tolerate it in my day in New York. I don't know if it's still that way in New York, but
I think it is.
Yeah, but that pisses me off.
Right. Okay.
And some of the other stuff that I've just seen generally in California and Los Angeles, I came here into the public schools, and there was no fresh food in the cafeterias for the kids. Mm-hmm. And actually, at the time, learned the name of the guy who was running the food program and wrote to him and said, how can it be that I'm in an agricultural state and there's no fresh food?
It's crazy.
And he reached out, to his credit, and, Gelson's did something that put a salad bar in our school and in other schools. And, people will do stuff, but.
You think it's just because there's just too many people here, and it's just, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think so. New York.
Yeah, New York's got a lot of people too, and it works. They're closer together, kind of but I don't know. LA is incredibly incompetent about certain things. Certainly anybody who lives here, the crime has been not great. The petty crimes and the situation with the unhoused people. And it feels like the city, you pay taxes for one reason is the city to kind of make sure that you're safe, and they just don't do those basic things.
Yeah. And the use of the various, I forget what you call them, but in California, when you vote, you have to vote for things that might have been legislated in New York. And so the people are voting for it. And large chunks of money for homelessness I've voted for them, and then I've seen it get worse.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just what are we doing exactly?
Yeah. And it's exactly, you're sitting there going, why am I voting for something that never gets freaking done? Or repairing the public schools, nothing ever gets done as far as I'm not an expert, but I would love to see a common sense political party combined with a competent and commonsensical set of actions on the part of just keeping the municipality in a sort of in fine fettle so that it can do what it's supposed to do, because it's not in fine fettle. I'm with you.
And I think a lot of Democrats are going to have, I don't know what's going to happen, but it certainly it's going to turn a lot of Democrats towards the right, or wherever it's going, that's going to make us safer and feel like things are being taken care of.
Right. And I tend to be a person who if I criticize, I don't want to fail to contribute. Mm-hmm. And I think one way of contributing would be to, in some ways, make it easier to get things built. I'm currently building a house I'm not currently building a house. I bought a property a year ago, and it has been in plan check in Santa Monica for off and on I say off and on because they give you instructions, you have to go back and it resets the clock. But we've been trying to get it approved since, April.
Wow.
And it's still not approved.
This is a classic, sort of bureaucracy.
Yeah,
regulations, and
I'm sure they're trying to protect us, but it's too damn hard
Yeah.
to do, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, that's going to have to loosen. Otherwise, they're never going to be able to rebuild.
Yeah. And Karen Bass announced a change to the rules about the architecture part of it, I think, where, you know, an architect can just self-certify plans, and then you have to go through engineering and the other sort of truly safety-based stuff. I'm by no means an expert on it, but like it's a tiny adjustment that's been made. That's probably a really good adjustment. Probably won't benefit me at all, but
right. My fear is that developers are just going to go in there and just.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And I have to say, there's a thing that Frank and I didn't like in the Palisades, and that was every time a house would sell, the lot would be scraped, and more often than not, a developer would put in what we called an algorithm house, which is a house with, you know, really it looks like the same thing over and over again,
right,
with different finishes, but the same roof line, the same 2 roof lines in the front with dormers, with, you know, like weird different materials applied. And
this is one of the advantages of, in our neighborhood, they have a kind of a historical code. So you have to build in a certain way, not in a place like the Palisades. And the Palisades, for people who don't know, I think it kind of gets a rap as being like this, you know, playground of the rich. And there were obviously a lot of very wealthy people that lived there, a lot of celebrities and stuff. But it also was kind of like a sleepy. It's kind of like Malibu in the way that it kind of started off as one thing. It was like a sleepy kind of coastal community with lots of craftsman house and kind of like maybe even middle class.
Yeah. And I think
and those people are still there.
Oh yeah, because what happens is grandparents bought a house in the late 40s, early 50s, and they passed it on to the parents, and then they are passing it on to the kids. So it's this very kind of ground level generational wealth, but when it burns to the ground, it basically takes people who, you know, like I have a friend, Lisa, who's an art teacher, and she bought her house herself. She doesn't fall into this category, but she bought the house, I think, like in the early 90s or something. And it is, I think, one of the main sources of her net worth.
That would be like our situation. Like, it's like everything we have. It's our house.
Yeah. And she's an artist, and she teaches art both to children and to severely disabled adults. And, you know, she doesn't deserve to have that stress on her.
Yeah.
You know, she bought the house herself. And, you know, you have a scale of what it costs to live in a place. So like I get annoyed when I hear it was a multi-million-dollar house, when really what it was is a person chose to live in a place when their house was not a multi-million-dollar house. And the place was so special that certain other people came in and developed it with bigger houses. You know, like the house that was across the street from us was for sale like 5 years ago. And it was a 1,200 square foot house. And what was rebuilt there was 7,000 square feet.
An algorithm house?
Well, this one was a little bit bigger and
fancier,
nicer and more custom, and I don't, you know, fault anybody for doing anything that you can do legally, right? I can't, because there's nothing I can do about it anyway. I wouldn't do that. We didn't do that when we bought our house. We added a room above the garage, you know, like we wanted to keep what was there because we understand it. We didn't keep the house. We renovated it because it was didn't look great, but you know, we didn't add any footprint. And we could have added more. We could have knocked it down, and we just opted not to. But the whole point is that, you know, if you're sort of middle class and you live in the Palisades, you're probably the plurality. You know what I mean? Like the really, really rich people, they're there. But they're not the main people there. Yeah. Right? And there are a lot of people who aren't rich and have inherited, like I said, their house. And then there are also a lot of people who lived in apartments, who worked at the Ralphs or lived in condos because of, you know, a beloved customer from 2002 said, I'm moving to Arizona. You can just live in my condo for not very much. Yep. Because there is this relationship between the people who work for the people in the Palisades and the people in the Palisades. And it's not your normal, I mean, it's frequently not your normal sort of like you work for me and I'm paying you and goodbye. It's,
Yeah.
Like the woman who used to help me keep my house clean when my kids were little moved to Houston, and we text with each other
Right.
every holiday, like, probably every 3 months.
It's a real community.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
wasn't, yeah.
And a lot of the kids who went to those schools are the children of, the gardeners and the handymen and the housekeeping staff.
Mm-hmm.
And those
Yeah.
kids went to school together. And a lot of those kids lost their culture there too. So there's a lot of, it's like peeling back an onion. It's not what you see is what you get. There certainly are very wealthy people. I'm not saying we don't, fall into that
Right.
category.
But the media likes to focus on the celebrities and stuff, but it's real. I want to
Yeah.
give people a sense that it's not just a kind of playground for the rich.
No.
It was a
Yeah.
very diverse community. And that's the Palisades. Then we got the Eaton fire, which
Oh, yeah.
affected even,
We know 2 people who lost in the Eaton fire, right?
right, which is we do. And
Yeah.
this is a different neighborhood. This is north of Pasadena. And it's also, that was a neighborhood with a lot of middle class and a lot of generational.
Oh, yeah. Same thing. In
yeah.
fact, I think Pasadena and Palisades were established by Methodist people from the Midwest. I could be wrong about that, but I know that there's something in Pasadena that makes a reference to Indiana.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I researched it a long time ago when I moved here because I'm always like, oh, they're Hoosiers here,
Yeah.
when you're from a
Is
place.
Notre Dame in Indiana?
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, my daughter goes to Notre Dame High School. It was started by the brothers that started Notre Dame University in Indiana.
Yeah,
There's an Indiana connection here
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah, for sure.
So have you ever thought I'm going to get out of California? Because, we talked about the
yeah.
frustrations that we feel. I mean, obviously
Oh God.
it's going to be very expensive to live here, but do you think it's not worth it?
It's really interesting. I moved here because the year before we moved here, my husband had worked 220 days.
Whoa.
And I looked at him and said, I think you live in California. And I think,
Yeah.
the kids are at the time were like 7 and 9, and maybe we should move there.
Yeah.
And frankly, it was nothing I ever wanted to do before. I liked coming here, but I didn't really go, gosh, I wish I lived in California.
Yeah.
So I moved, and it was hard for me. Professionally, I kind of fell off the face of the planet.
Right.
And
They're like, you're where? Yeah, because you work for these very East Coast.
Yes.
I mean, ESPN. Yeah.
and international too.
Yeah.
I still to this day, when I get called about opportunities, it's all in New York. Nobody knows I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
So I was sort of always going, oh God, I want to go back.
Yeah.
And yet I always say that you should have your head examined if you don't love living here.
Yeah,
Because
it's insane. It's so beautiful.
so
Even
beautiful.
today, it's like the most beautiful day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It's the middle of January. There's fires raging, I don't know, 30 miles from us. And it's a beautiful place to live. There's no question about it.
And it reminds me of 9/11 in that respect.
Yeah.
Because, 9/11, it was a sunny, beautiful day.
Were you
and-
there? And I
Oh
was
yeah,
there.
I
think
was
we were
there.
both
I
yeah.
was there, and my sister-in-law and brother-in-law were there.
Mhm. That was like 9/11. 9/11 was a gorgeous day. I remember walking outside and being like, what a gorgeous September day. Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of leaving, I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what this is gonna. I know that it has made a significant dent, and I will have had a financial loss that will be very large.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going to probably be very weaselly, right?
Yeah.
But I had just in the last, honestly, 6 weeks, started feeling like, yeah, I like it here.
Mm-hmm.
I like in terms of living
native,
here.
yeah.
And part of it is reconnecting or connecting with people like yourself, more East Side people, although I have amazing friends in the Palisades. I tend to vibe a little more with the East Side.
Yeah.
But
Us too. Although I think I prefer the way the West Side looks. Anyway, I go through this with my wife all the time. She's I can never live there.
Yeah. Well, when my house, when the lot gets cleaned up, I have told people I want to, for the short term, make it into a nudist colony for people over 55. Because it is like a little oasis. It has, a lot of nice wild landscaping, and it's
yeah.
a little So we could build a viewing tower and just climb up the viewing tower and look at the ocean.
Not the nudist colony, but the ocean.
Yeah, the ocean, not the nudists. I'm sure I'd have to put a screen up of some kind, but I'm trying to make myself laugh. I'm like telling myself little stories and jokes like that to get through the thing. And, I'm looking forward to a big cry. I haven't had it yet, and I'm a big crier. That's the thing that's interesting.
It hasn't come yet. Sometimes it's delayed. I have found that happens to me when horrible things happen in my life. It takes me 2 or 3 weeks. When my friend Adam passed away, I was so cool through the whole thing. And then one day I just freaking lost it.
Yeah.
Could not stop crying.
Yeah.
Something triggered it and I was just like, goodbye.
I think,
But it's important. You have to do that.
You do have to do that. And I think that the physiological aspect of it is I'm still in adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
I had a car accident on the 1st of September, and I was in adrenaline for a week, and then I woke up one day, and I was both in pain and really mad.
Yep.
Because my body was finally out of whatever it was that kept me upright. And
interesting.
Yeah, and I suspect that when I've gotten underway with some conversations with California Fair Plan advocates, quote unquote, with quotes around it, I hope they are. I really do, but I don't want to give anything the benefit of the doubt in this situation because there's too much at stake for my kids' financial future, frankly, because we've been very conservative and we worked really, really, really hard.
Yeah, both of you and Frank.
Both of us are really hardworking.
Hard workers.
Yeah, and not big spenders and not So I think when I'm at a certain point with all that, I'm going to wake up one day and, it's going to be a keening situation, to use the Irish word.
I don't even know what that word means.
It's like when you wailing and shaking and, because how could you not eventually, maybe I won't, I don't know. I mean, I'm not there yet. I have moments where I break, but it's really quick because I'm like, I want to do business. I'm a business-minded person and I'm creative. So those two things come forward and,
Has and right now your business, like you just show me your spreadsheet that you put together and you've got you're very organized about it. And then what about your creative side? Are you reading? Like, can you even find, does picking up a book does not help right now?
No.
Right now you're in fix-it mode or like.
I'm in fix-it mode and I really have to, like last night I was up at about 3:30 in the morning and I needed to move. So I did a little bit of Qigong and then I was just like a nut and I was like walking around in circles inside.
This is a good neighborhood for walking, by the way.
Yeah, I just don't want to breathe the air outside.
Yeah, you're right. You can't even freaking go outside. It's unbelievable.
It's awful. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I look organized. I don't feel organized. I feel like there's like one little, elusive thing that I could be doing that I'm not doing. And, it's kind of like in Raising Arizona. Do you remember when they kidnap the toddler? The sister-in-law says, "Did you get your dip tet yet?" The inoculation for babies and that thing of like, did we get our dip tet yet?
Yeah. Oh my God.
And you feel like, have I done everything I'm supposed to do? Like for example, American Express, you call them about your card and paying your bill on time. And then you have to also call a separate one about getting, trying to put in for insurance to get back what you bought in the last 90 days.
Oh, interesting.
Or get the money back.
Yeah.
And
stuff, it could be anything, stuff for the house or just.
They don't look at what it is. If you bought it on your American Express card in the last 90 days.
I didn't know that.
You don't even itemize it. You just send it to them and they tell you, okay, you get 2 cents back.
Right.
Like 2 cents is better than nothing when you have basically a prospect of spending $100,000 on shit you didn't plan on buying. Right. And so it's like you kind of, you beat the bushes to try to find some way to manage
this,
some cash flow. Yeah. And
that's why Frank is getting up at 5 a.m. I mean, I saw him this morning walking by like 5 a.m. I saw you were like in your slippers and he was walking him to the car. Poor guy's like, he's got to work. He's got to.
Yeah. And his producer, Laura, has brought me a cup of coffee every morning, and you guys have given me coffee, and oh my
God. We got to
God.
get you a coffee machine in there.
No,
Sorry.
I don't need a coffee. I'm fine. I'd rather interact with people because I do.
Right.
I have blinders on to try to get this shit worked out, and I'm not gonna. And that's the thing. My friend Alyssa Ashwood put up a note that basically said you have to schedule in what you would normally be doing, like the fun stuff, because it helps.
Right. You don't feel, and as long as you don't feel guilty, like, oh, I'm going to go to a spa or get my nails done or whatever it is, the fun stuff.
Yeah. I'm even just talking about reading a book, like you said, or about like, we went and had a little meal with some friends who were in town shooting Super Bowl ads. I was like, I don't think I want to go. And then we went, and I was glad I went, because you got to kind of step away.
Last night we had a really lovely dinner. You got us Chinese food, and you invited some friends over and your kids, and it was like so wonderful, and it was really nice. We brought the kitten down. I just got a new kitten. I don't know if I announced that on my podcast yet. We passed him or her around. She was like, what the hell, Stevie?
Stevie was like, why are you doing this?
Yeah,
to
Stevie's
me?
like, I hate you.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to have a kitty without the kitties.
Yeah.
That
my
cheers
God.
us up.
They're like little light bearers. They come when I finally do lay down, they come and they just lay right on top of me as if to say, let us like heal you a little bit. They're so sweet. I love them so much. But yeah, last night was fun because it was just people talking not about this.
Right. And then I'm like, hey, let's talk about this for an hour and record it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to let you go because you have your life to deal with. And I so appreciate you sharing your story with us. And you're just an amazing person. I think that definitely came across in this podcast. And if you were my mom, I would want you to be my mom if I were in this situation, because I know I would be in good hands. But I'm so sorry this happened to you, Lee Ann, and your family. And
yeah, I'm obviously praying for all the people who this happened to, and I'm also praying for the people who work for them so that they can have their income. Honestly, because those people, people who work 7 days a week cleaning houses, cutting lawns, keeping gardens, all of that work is gone.